Yeah, I'm like an addict, do I gotta have it. I ain't even playing, got a really bad habit. If it moves, gotta grab it, fuse like a magnet. Lose, won't have it till I'm doomed in a casket. I ain't playing, got a weird mind. If you work 8 hours, I'ma work 9. If the shit tastes sour, you should taste mine. I'ma stay in power for a long time. Get up, nah, I ain't a quitter. Toss me the ball, I'm a really big hitter. Big picture, I'm a straight killer. Rising the song to the highest bidder. Got juice, got gas, I'ma move fast. New shoes, new tracks, like who's that? I'm new, come back, better than last. Yeah, it's a new me, never gonna look back. I'm never gonna look back. Cause damn, I was built to last. You move slow and I move fast, and that's facts. Only I can make a change. Slowly take a step today. I will never be the same, cause that's what it takes.
All right, guys, happy Saturday. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to our special guest, Chancery Daily. Say hi to the folks.
Hey there. How's everybody doing?
I appreciate you taking some time out of your weekend to spend however long you're willing to stay. We're welcome. We'd love to have you, but tell us about just briefly your background and what you do, so we kind of level set where you're coming from with the information, and then we'll talk about with the folks what topics we're going to cover tonight.
Sure. So I did a long Twitter thread about it, and I would love for you guys to all go and read it and to your implicit agreement to my terms and conditions of following me if you're going to follow, because I just want to be really clear that I'm not or an ape or I'm not involved way other than I'm a Chancery court, and this case happened to land in the. And so the Chancery Daily has been reporting of Chancery for the last decade. We run a main legal trade publication that up, and then on basically nights and Substack, and I write on Twitter. So our main publication is for lawyers. When the Twitter versus Musk happened, choppy. I'm sorry. Last year when the Twitter versus Musk, we decided to try to help explain things to, and that was a expansion of our service because it's explaining legal concepts to people who are so we started really enjoyed it, but it's a lot of work in a different world because you can't talk the same choppy. They say, let me try another mic if so you guys don't have that problem.
that one's clipping or cutting a little bit.
How we try change it? How do I do that on this service? Let's see.
If you want to change your audio settings, go down to the cogwheel below the frame.
Yep, got it. Time out. Try this one. Is this one any better? Is this
Keep on talking.
better?
We'll let you know in a second.
New microphone. Okay, here's the new. Here's any better. Is this working? No.
It was cutting
better?
like every 10th or 11th word. So we'll need to hear you. Just keep on going with your introduction.
Well, I'll just keep going on this goes. So we cover basically the court of today, and then on nights and weekends I do this for the people. And so we don't take a position in. I don't take a position in trade on any of this information. I don't get involved in any of who are involved in, which is the sort of financial aspect. So I just that I am just here to provide you works. And
so For those, just to summarize, for those who couldn't hear through the chop, she's not involved in AMC. Their organization is not involved in AMC. They report on the Delaware Chancery Court. Basically, is it any case that comes, or do you guys pick which cases you cover?
We were publication on all cases, but all cases to the public. So
okay,
we just interesting.
All right, let's jump.
Issue. I can.
Yeah, it's still a little choppy.
Let me. If I switch now, it says I have 4 bars of.
Are you on a Wi-Fi or you're on a cell phone?
And I have like a really strong internet connection. Let me try one more. Okay, I don't know, but apologize for that.
That's okay. Did you change something? Or?
I did change a couple, but there's a couple settings. Is it worse or better?
I won't be able to tell until you say a few sentences.
Yeah. It's so weird. Anyway, that I know there's a sort of volatility this community is. They don't want to get involved in that aspect. They want to be able to provide information. So I'm kind of trying to line between providing information but not getting caught up.
Yeah, it's still a little choppy, but let's power through it unless you want to disconnect and try and come back in.
Okay, drop off and come back.
Yeah, why don't you try that real quick.
Okay, all right.
If she, hey, yeah, when she comes back, I can do that, Stephen. That's a good idea. Can send her a Discord invite if she has Discord. All right. Let's see how this goes. And the folks were asking if you have, are you on Discord by chance?
I don't know how logged in I am right now, and sometimes I forget my password and such and all, but
okay,
I could try.
It's sounding better right now. Let's cross our fingers, because I was gonna.
Okay, all right.
I could send you a Discord invite and just have you come through on that. But this is sounding better.
Okay, I apologize. I don't know what the heck's going on.
All right, let's jump, to respect your time, let's just jump into one of the first topics I saw you tweeting about today. I'm going to put it up on the screen. And by the way, guys, what she was saying earlier is she's not involved in AMC. You can follow her on Twitter, but if you're going to be disrespectful, she's probably going to block you. So this is a fact-based discussion, much for the same reason why I had to make my comments on my videos members only, not because I want to exclude people, but there's just too much conspiracy stuff and trolling and people that are more about emotions, theories over facts. This is not the channel for that. So
yeah, and also just like I just don't tolerate people also being like assholes to each other.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna deal with that. I'm not going to have that energy in my space. I just don't.
I had a bad week with getting dragged down into that, and so I just decided for everybody's enjoyment and sanity that wants to learn, we're going to do AMC related content will be members only. All my other live streams, guys, anyone can watch for free. Only members can chat in AMC stuff.
Okay.
All my other live streams are open to the public. All right, let's talk about the letters to the judge. There was, the judge sent out a couple weeks ago a letter to everybody saying instructions on how to write to the court, and some people are interpreting that as she's encouraging letters to be written. What can you give us your thoughts on why she put that letter out, and just in general about the effectiveness of letters to the court?
Yes. So the reason that the judge is putting out, she put out a letter a couple of weeks ago, and then recently this week, the Register and Chancery put out a letter with some procedural points. And the reason that those letters are being put out is to try to, I wouldn't say discourage submissions, but trying to get the submissions that are proper format. Those intended to encourage, actually not yet for submissions. So it's going to work, and we'll talk about it in a minute. Absolutely going to be a period for submission from stockholders. That has been an issue in this case, is that it's sort of the party, the AMC may not be wait 60 days. 60 days.
It got choppy.
Is for
the audio got choppy again.
Oh man.
Let's see.
My audio.
What else? How about
hold on.
Can I
I have an idea. Hold on. One second.
I've got one other idea
too.
If you don't have your
What about this? Does that make it any better? Is it?
Yeah.
So far.
Does it
now
work?
There's the echo of
My voice.
Oh, okay. I can. Can I have your recording? One sec. I can maybe fix this. Might have been my Bluetooth. Let me know. Thing so I can hear if we have an echo. Tony, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
And you can't hear yourself, right?
I cannot hear myself. No.
Okay. Can you hear me okay now? Hear me better now? I'm trying to test out the microphone robot voice.
Yeah, it's a little better, but we'll need to hear you talk for a few seconds to.
Okay. What is going on?
So,
when Grandpa Barney types, I sound like a robot? Is that what that?
It's just because your voice is clipping, and then it's clipping, and then it's taking what you said and it's smashing it together with what you said right before that.
Oh, I'm sorry about this.
How about if we could try something else? I can. Are you on a phone right now?
No, I could try.
Do you have a phone where you can call in?
Yeah.
I can DM you a phone number to call in on.
Old school. Kick it. Old school.
I wonder. Well, Restream is not really cool about. I'd probably have an echo for myself if we do that. Restream doesn't like sharing system audio. But I can mute myself. All right, so let's try and talk about the letters for one more second. You were saying the court wasn't discouraging letters, but they weren't necessarily encouraging them either. Is that a fair?
Right. Yeah. Is not trying to encourage letters. This is not the proper time for. There will be a proper time for objections to happen. It's not until the actual filed and the proposed settlement has not the court the notice has not been provided. So it's as though you're everything right now. All of these letters that are being filed with the board, the notice has even been provided settlement. So she's trying to be a common holders because people are saying they can't hear.
It's still choppy. How about if I try messaging you a phone number?
If people are being serious comments, we have to take.
Yeah, we have a tech issue.
Yeah, sorry. I hate tech issues.
Give me 1 second, guys. Do you have a phone you can call in on if I email
Yeah.
it? Or DM it to you?
Yes.
Hang on 1 second. Bear with us, guys. Sorry about this.
It is crazy for us picking up a ton of background noise and there's no, it's so bizarre.
Yeah, I can hear that. All right. I got that. Got that fixed. Let me send you this number now. You can go ahead and disconnect here and then look for a DM. Hello.
Hello. I'm in the queue. I'm on the Tony Denaro show.
You're live now. I might have an echo, so when you're talking, I'm going to mute my mic. That's a restream issue. So
Okay.
Let me let you go through the letter thing one more time.
Okay. So if you didn't hear me, just the very quick part, like I'm a court of chancery expert. I'm not an AMC person. That's not my wheelhouse. I'm not a financial person. I'm not interested in doing any of that stuff. Go read the thread on my Twitter. Please don't drag me into any of your personal fights or anything. Don't be jerks on my timeline. I will block you. I don't care about any of that. I care about the court. That's all I care about. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay. letters to the court. This is not really the proper time. The court is accommodating them because she is incredibly generous and cares about stockholders. She cares about your opportunity to be heard. However, you're doing it out of order. The whole point is that the court is going to provide you with 60 days to object to any proposed settlement when it happens. The thing is that the proposed settlement has not yet been filed with the court. Once the proposed settlement is filed with the court, they will provide you with 60 days to then object meaningfully to the proposed settlement, because you will have actually been able to read the notice to stockholders that is required. It will be filed in an 8K. You will get actually a notice of it, and then you will actually have something to read and absorb and then object to it. So it's going to be like a proper order of things, right? And we know that Vice Chancellor Zern, from, if you've read any of my Substacks about her style and her way of thinking, she really, really prefers that things go in the proper order. So she's allowing all these letters to come in out of order, and she's doing that because they're being filed pro se, and she wants to be lenient because she understands that people don't understand the rules. She's putting these instructions on the docket because she is trying to make sure that things happen properly. She does not want you emailing her. You should not be emailing the court. That is inappropriate, period, full stop. You should not be emailing some email address. You should not be emailing the court, period. If you need to file a letter right now for some reason that you just feel it's absolutely essential, you should do it pursuant to the rules that I posted on Twitter, which are the rules that she has just put out and that the Register in Chancery has just fully explained. You can file it electronically if you can figure out how to use file and serve, which I admit is fairly clusterfucky, but that's a whole other issue. But it's still not the appropriate time, and I'm not saying that to discourage you or dissuade you from objecting. I'm saying that because the notice period hasn't even opened yet. So Right. No, and she's not going to rule on this settlement until the notice period is over. And so, the fact that you're doing these letters now, she's going to take these, less seriously. Oh, so they say they can't hear you, Tony. They say they can hear me, but they can't hear you.
Oh, I forgot. I was muting myself so I wouldn't echo.
Sorry, I can hear Tony, but you.
I was asking guys, is there any precedent of a judge taking a letter when that someone just mailed in as part of the case or part of their decision process?
And the answer is that if it happens in the proper time, if it happens in the proper order, if it happens during the notice period, also they're saying that they don't get an echo if you leave your mic on. So it sounds
all right,
like
I'm going to leave my mic on and let's see. You guys let me know if there's an echo. I'll turn it off.
Okay. They also say they only care about my words, not his, but they're just kidding. So stockholder objections have been considered by the court in the past. Now, have they ever been effective in changing the terms of a settlement? I wouldn't say that just like a letter from a random stockholder, there's not a ton of precedent for it being really effective in having a massive impact. It doesn't mean that it's not going to be meaningful here. Zern is very attentive to detail. She's going to listen to what you all have to say, but I'm going to tell you at some point, there's not going to be enough signal in the noise if everyone just keeps, especially because she's very attentive, but she's also very diligent. And so she knows that these objections are coming in before the notice has been filed. In her mind, it's what could they possibly be reasonably objecting to when she knows that these objections are coming in without having read the notice of proposed settlement. Now, I know that you guys know what the previously proposed general terms were, but she's a very detail-oriented person. She knows you haven't seen the actual notice of settlement, and that might seem like a nitpicky thing to you, but she's a nitpicky judge. So it's going to matter whether you do this in the proper order. And so I would say you're much better off waiting for the notice to be issued. And then if you have an objection, addressing it in the most proper and authoritative way that you can. And part of what I want to do is to actually review the notice of settlement when it comes out. And I will do a really comprehensive debrief for you on what I think about the settlement, which is just me being a rando. I'm not saying that my view is authoritative. I'm just saying that I will sort of try to aggregate what I think the views of people who know better than I do. I will also just try to tell you from a legal point of view what I think she will think about it. And then you can add your own opinion, your own thoughts, you have all of your own concerns, and then you can decide what you want to do with that and whether or not you want to file an objection. Now, here's the thing. Whether you file an objection or not is not going to be the thing that really has an impact. What would have an impact is if you show up at
she dropped off. We'll let her call back in. Tech issues, guys. All right. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. You're back.
That might have been my fault. So what's going to matter is not really whether you have to file an objection in order to be heard at the final approval hearing. But what's really going to make the difference is are you going to show up at that final approval hearing and stand in front of the judge and argue your objection?
Do you have to do that?
Well, to be effective, you can't just be a keyboard warrior here. You can, I'm not saying that you have to, but to really, really make an impact, if she gets 100 letters during the objection period and they all say not exactly, please don't send 100 letters that say the same thing. But if she gets a sense that there's a similar sort of vibe, I don't want to encourage 100 people to send letters that say the same thing. So please don't take what I just said as that. But yes, it'll matter that people follow through with this, right? It matters if what happens at the hearing actually matters. So you can't just be because the judges know that sending a letter is easy. Showing up on the 12th floor is hard. So a lot of times people will shoot off a letter and whatever, especially shooting off an email that costs people nothing, sort of it's just easy to do. But do you really have the cojones to show up in front of the judge and say your piece? I don't know. Will people? Maybe.
But in summary, we're not discouraging people from writing letters. It's certainly, you're right. But what you're telling them is there's a time to write a letter, and that time is not yet here. And we'll get at the end of this conversation, we'll get to when is the right time.
Correct.
Okay. Let's park that for a second. We'll come back to the letters. Can you talk to us about the preliminary injunction hearing, just so there's no uncertainty or doubt about the April 27th? It's my understanding that PI hearing is canceled. It's off. It's done, right?
Yes, the preliminary injunction hearing is no more. There is no hearing scheduled for April 27th anymore. And the only question is is that now a blank spot on her calendar that hasn't been absorbed by someone else? And could this status conference end up being just by happenstance on April 27th because that happens to be an open spot on her calendar? I suppose that's possible because her calendar is super packed right now. So, but I tend to think that she'll try to get them in for this status conference sooner than that. But also I know just from my coverage of all of her other matters that her schedule next week is bananas already. So, it's going to really matter how hard the parties push her to have this status conference next week. If they don't, the 27th is already the week after next. So it's they just freed up that spot on her calendar, which is already packed. So I'm going to say there's no more hearing on the 27th, and then it's going to just so happen that the status conference ends up being in that time slot on the 27th, and everyone's going to say, but you said there would be no hearing on the 27th.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to just be a sort of matter of, calendaring, not a matter of that there was a hearing on the 27th for any reason.
It just
the
freed up a
preliminary
slot.
injunction hearing is off. Yes.
Okay. So we know that the attorney submitted a letter again to the judge talking about this settlement agreement. And I know a lot of people were kind of scratching their heads like, why are they doing that when she just turned down a similar letter, a motion to drop the status quo order? And I didn't create my little text header, but can you talk to that very briefly, why she turned down the first one and how or why they can do it again right now?
Sure. Yeah, it's just like completely different procedurally what they're asking here, which is the thing that I was going on and on about earlier in what I've been covering about this case, is that the thing they were asking her to do before was to lift the status quo order, which was basically they asked her at the beginning of this case, put your hand sort of on the controls, put your hand on the brake, like stop this collapse of the apes in the common from happening. So now the court's hand is on the controls of the company, basically. Now, before they were saying, hey, just lift your hand up, just don't worry, we're going to do this thing that's basically undoable, and don't worry about it, we'll handle the rest from here, like you don't worry yourself about it. But she's saying, no, like I have to be the fiduciary now, because see what happens in these cases is that once there's a settlement agreement in a class action, what the court recognizes is that both parties kind of become like on the same team. Like both parties kind of want the same outcome. And what the court recognizes from historical precedent and just from a lot of experience is that can be dangerous for the remaining unrepresented stockholders. And so the court has to act like a fiduciary for all of you all stockholders who are not a party to this case. And so the court has an obligation to actually approve this settlement as a fiduciary for all the other stockholders who are not named parties in this case. And so she was like, no, what are you doing? Like, I'm not going to take my hand off the controls of this case when I have to approve this settlement, and you all are out there trying to like do this right. Like, this is undoable. Like, if I take my hand off the controls now, this can't be undone.
So how does that differ from what the one they just submitted a couple days ago?
So what they just submitted is to say, hey, we would like to go through the proper procedure, and at the end of the proper procedure, you will take your hand off the controls after you have approved the settlement, and then you will take your hand off the controls once you have reviewed, we have had the objection period, we will do all the things in the proper order, and then you will lift the status quo order, and then the collapse of the apes in the common would happen if you approve the settlement after hearing objections from the stockholders.
So the first time they were trying to kind of the plaintiffs and the defendants agreed essentially to short circuit the process, at least make an end run.
Yes.
And now they're kind of like, all right, that didn't work. Let's go through the proper procedures to get the same thing done. I don't know why this is a new phone system that I'm using. And so I'll let her call back in. It looks like I'm going to check the settings. It looks like it's dropping her call after she's on for like 5 minutes or something. Tech issues. Call back in. All right.
I don't know what going on tonight.
I think that might be on my end. I'm going to check the settings on my. This is a new phone system that I'm using. Let me check the settings and make sure there's no time limit.
I'm only allowed to talk for so many minutes.
You got 5 minutes. You better hurry. All right. Let's. So we talked about, I think we covered everything about why before she didn't approve it, and now
it's a completely different thing that they are bringing to the court now. Before, it was procedurally this really weird end run where they were trying to basically do this trick where she was going to have to do something that was irreparable, and then like what if she didn't like the settlement after she got to actually look at it, she was in a position where she could have not, there was no remedy, right? And it was absurd. And that's why I was the only one who was saying she's never going to do this. The parties were so unprepared. I saw you say
that. Too late.
The parties were so unprepared for this that they didn't even have a contingency in their term sheet for what would happen if she denied the motion. They were like completely unprepared. So anyway, they got really sideswiped by the fact that she denied the motion somehow. And that's why I think they got thrown into so much upheaval, because they really were unprepared for her to deny that motion.
All right, let's talk about, I'm kind of confused on this one, the motion to intervene and how that's going to play into the current timeline. Mr. Tuttle.
You know, that's a really good question, because I actually have not had a chance to look at Mr. Tuttle's motion for intervention. And, you know, interestingly, so Vice Chancellor Zern put out a short minute order on Friday afternoon. And to the last point we were just making, one of the things she said was, the very last words that she said on Friday afternoon were, "For the avoidance of doubt, the status quo order remains in place," which was like, don't fuck with me.
Right.
Do not lift. You do not have my permission to collapse the eighth and the comment. Just making sure we're clear. Like, so, you know, she wants to be very clear that there's no shenanigans going to happen here. But she also in that minute order said, you know, basically, I want you to address these motions for intervention. She said she was going to take Mr. Tuttle's motion as an unopposed motion for intervention if it wasn't responded to, if it wasn't opposed by the parties, which means that they have to brief against it or in opposition to it. I think it's by Monday, actually, is the date that she put for their responsive brief. And so, you know, it's interesting because he's got a really interesting situation, he was like a potential litigant. I mean, he's got a really intricate history with this whole thing. He approached like the actual, you know, Allegheny's counsel early on with this case. He's like, I mean, he's not just some rando. He like has a very detailed backstory with this particular, he's arguably the person who came up with the statutory claim for this case. Like, I mean, legitimately, there's no, like, this isn't just like someone off the street. Like, this is someone who genuinely like saw this issue perhaps first. And so, you know, the 242b2 issue is something that I think Zern is actually genuinely even just potentially intellectually curious about. I mean, she is the one who ruled in the Box matter against sort of perhaps institutional, perhaps like, I don't know, you could say against institutional thinking. Anyway, there's an interesting sort of issue here of the sort of novel question of law in the statutory claim. And Mr. Tuttle's motion sort of deals with that. And I think it's interesting to Zern. I'm just totally speculating on that, but there's some indicia in the docket that's potential. It's just in the ether that's interesting to her. Not that would guide her choices, but like that, you know, I don't know. It's like, and how would it impact things? Like if he gets to intervene, I mean, I just haven't had a chance to think through it because it's all just, you know, there's so much going on. But if he does get to intervene, I haven't even grappled with what that means, because then he has to sign on to the settlement. Can he kibosh the settlement? Like, I mean, he's a party then. They can't settle without him then.
Right.
It's very interesting. Like, I really don't talk about upheaval and chaos. It's fascinating.
So that's probably the most,
think more about it.
That's probably the most unknown of what we're looking at going forward.
Yes, I really don't know. Like, we'll know on Monday, sort of, like, presumably they're going to oppose it, and I haven't also looked at whether, you know, to what degree it's like opposable, but I'll probably just wait for them to file their opposition because let them do the work. I'm not going to do the work for them, investigating, like doing the case law research about what the potential opposition is. I'll read their opposition brief and then I can analyze whether I think that they have a strong position for opposition or not.
Okay. Moving on to, let's talk about And Grandpa, I see your question. I'm gonna get to it. Let's talk about the process for the settlement hearing. You know, putting aside the total motion to intervene thing for a second. If we get some resolution on that on Monday, or even if we don't, let's just pretend that didn't exist for a second. What is the normal process, the one they should follow, regarding the settlement and the timeline for folks to expect in the Delaware Chancery Court?
So they should file the proposed settlement that will include like a sort of new scheduling order for when they want to have the final approval hearing, the fairness hearing, which will include something like 60 days prior to that, when they will promise to serve notice on stockholders. And so they'll sort of work backwards from whenever they get to schedule the final hearing. So what will end up coming to light from all of that is they will file something that includes the notice. They will then, within like 10 days of filing that with the court, they will actually, file the 8K that has the notice in it. We will have already seen that with the court. So like you'll
AMC will have to file an 8K saying there's a settlement offer on the table, right? I don't know why. Guys, sorry, this is my first day live using this new phone system. So we're breaking it in. I've looked through all the settings, but give her a second to call back in if she doesn't get frustrated. I've looked through all the settings. I've messaged support. Sorry for this. All right, sorry about that. I was just telling them.
I've done some anecdotal research. I figured out that your intro is 17 seconds and the time limit is 7 minutes because all these calls are 7 minutes.
Okay, I already sent a message to support, and I'm going through the settings, but I don't see any. I'm going through the help files too. I don't see anything about a call limit, but I'll get that worked out tomorrow.
No problem.
7 minutes at a time. We'll get this done.
So you'll see a thing. So they'll have to file an 8K, but like I say, if you follow me, we will have seen like 10 days before or some days before the 8K, we will have seen the same. They have to file the same information with the court that they're going to file. Usually we have all the information already, but then they file it in an 8K because the court has to like sign off on the notice that's going to be filed in 8K. So then that happens, and then the notice is filed, is whatever. It's usually in an 8K. It can be done in other ways, but normally 8K is sufficient, and that's what happens when it's a publicly traded company. So you'll see the 8K, and then that starts the 60-day clock running. It's normally 60 days. There is some world in which they could argue that they don't need a full 60 days. This is possible, right? That 60 days is the default standard. 60 days is the gold standard. Now, they've been making a lot of noise about how they need this all to happen much, much faster. However, in that letter that they sent her, they made a big fuss at the bottom about how they would do the full and complete process of doing a settlement approval after a full and whatever. They made it sound like they weren't going to be pushing to truncate this process. However, they could, but they would have to have a really, really, really good reason. And I think that she's going to be loath to shorten the time frame here without like evidence of like bankruptcy that's so imminent that I don't think it's factual, because I've heard that they have like at least 6 months runway of cash. And unless they literally only have like 60 days runway of cash, I don't think, she just, with all the objections she's getting, with all the noise about this case, with all the publicity, I can't see her being like, oh yeah, let's just shorten the time frame for stockholder objections. I really don't see it happening. However, I will just let you know that it's a possibility, and you should pay attention because she could shorten the time frame. That being said, I don't think you actually need 60 days to object since you all are paying attention. So we will keep you posted very rigorously and, let you know. There'll be a motion and there'll be briefing on it, and she would have to decide that, and it would take it would take at least weeks for that to be decided, and she would be slow moving to decide something like that if she were going to shorten the process by any amount of time. But I'll just let you know that it is possible, but I think it's very unlikely.
Okay. So
and then
basic,
after the hearing, so then there's the hearing
Go ahead.
after like whatever the 60-day period, there's the hearing, and then she will either issue a ruling at the hearing, but I really don't think that's likely in this case, especially if there's objections at the hearing. She's likely to issue I would say in this case, she's likely to issue a written opinion about whether she approves the settlement or not.
and what's the
But
difference
she could
between
also
a
issue
ruling
an
and
oral ruling.
what's the difference between a ruling and a written opinion?
She can issue an oral ruling, which is just where she speaks out her ruling
Right there in the
versus a
moment.
written opinion. Yeah,
Written opinion, she goes back to her office for a few days, thinks about it, writes it down, publishes it.
exactly.
Okay. I want to get to a couple audience questions, and hopefully, does that kind of answer to you guys what the timeline is? There's going to be, is it a in-person meeting that's coming up with the judge regarding this letter that they submitted?
The status conference for like the scheduling purposes will just probably be a call, and she said that they're to provide a dial-in audio listen-only line for the public. So I'll make sure that everybody has that information.
I'm talking about the one this coming week.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
There'll be a public dial-in listen option, huh?
Yes, she
Okay.
said she instructed the attorneys to make sure that there was a way for the public to listen in.
So we'll be able to listen in, and then if everything is, all the boxes are checked, then she'll schedule a settlement hearing 60 days from whatever date that is next week, assuming it's next week.
No, because they haven't even submitted the proposed settlement yet. Unless they have it ready to go, they haven't even proved that. Like they're slow moving this. I don't know why, because they seem like they're like so anxious on the one hand, but
Yeah.
you know. What this little conference will be about is setting a schedule to submit the stuff that will then start to lay out the deadline. So it's really just like a scheduling conference to start scheduling the dates. So, you know, we'll see what they have prepared. If they have it all in hand, then I guess they could, you know, they could move it faster, but they don't seem to be.
Can you talk about, there's a lot of debate, raging debate about the fact that there is a settlement so quickly into this case. A lot of people were certain that AMC would fight it, or even myself, I thought that the judge would hear a couple of arguments and just dismiss the case. But, you know, that maybe that's naive. I'm not an attorney. Can you talk about how normal it is for a settlement to come out of a mediation this quickly? And is it a sign of weakness on either party's side that they have come to a settlement agreement?
Well, I mean, these cases, you know, for better or for worse, they frequently settle in the earlier phases. I mean, you know, there's a lot of I'm going to get cut off in the middle of this critical
7 minutes coming up.
Yeah. We're coming up on it, yeah. But you know, there's a lot to be said about. We're going to get into some real like deep talk about plaintiffs' class action lawsuits and things. But I think.
All right, guys, give her a second to call back. I'm not going to keep this service if they can't fix this 7-minute time limit bullshit. Okay, we're back.
7 minutes goes by fast.
It does.
It's not unusual for you know, these cases. Normally these cases settle in sort of the earliest stages, and you know, look, the thing is that in one sense, if there's compensation to the class, it's very complicated, because if there's compensation to the class, that's compensation that the class wouldn't have gotten. Now, on the other hand, I understand the argument that in a weird sense, you could argue like that there was harm to the class.
Yeah,
in a way.
It's kind of twisted.
So it's like it's very bizarre, you know. There's so many intricacies about like the market moving forces, and then you've got like the bigger players who come in and basically feed on the class. I mean, it gets really gross, in my opinion, how all of this works from a market perspective. I really don't like a lot of it, and so it's why I frankly stay out of the weeds of most of the financial aspects of it. But it gets very, very complex trying to analyze what the right outcome is. But just looking at it from a legal point of view, which is the only way we can look at it as lawyers, is that if there's compensation to the class, that's compensation that there was a very, very intricate appendix to the original to the motion that they filed to lift the status quo order that tried to justify the proposed settlement, the 1 to 7.5 share compensation,
right,
whatever they called it, the settlement compensation. And it had a lot of maths in it that I did not have the time to get into at that point, and I still haven't yet. But I don't know. There are people who say that it's quite fair, but there's so much that has gone on and transpired in the markets between then and now that it's like, how could you ever properly account for everything that's happened and all of the people that have come in and fed in the frenzy? I don't know. It's like it gets impossibly complex to sort of analyze what's right and wrong in these situations, in my opinion. And so, she has an impossible task, I think, really. Yeah. But to answer your basic question, no, it's not weird that these things settle. How she's going to figure out what's fair is it's a reasonableness standard. Is it like that a reasonable stockholder would accept this settlement? The fact is that we are in a litigation. Whether or not it's like right or wrong that we were able to get here is sort of a bigger question than this litigation, and we aren't going to like settle the concept of class actions within this one case. So we kind of have to deal like, look, we're in this case. We aren't going to like litigate conceptually our class action is a good or bad thing within this one instance. So we just need to get past like, would you rather have compensation or not?
I've got two audience questions. One from Grandpa Barney. He says, do you think that it makes a difference to Chancellor Zern that 87 or 80% of the common stockholders voted yes in the recent proxy vote, yes to the reverse split and conversion?
I think that it would have potentially mattered more if we had gone to the preliminary injunction hearing. However, I also think that it's important to remember that was, the percentage of the voting, not the percentage of the outstanding.
Right,
and
right,
so
right.
That was, really a very relevant difference that sometimes like Adam Aaron likes to gloss over when he's discussing these things, because that was sort of what's at issue with the statutory claim, which is that what the lawsuit was saying was required was the percentage of the outstanding, not the percentage of the voting. And that was sort of the crux of the legal argument here.
Would have been nice if we could have had more people vote. I know some people didn't even said they didn't get their ballots and all sorts of chaos there, but that is true. 87% was the percentage of cast votes, not the 87% of common outstanding. So thank you for that. The other question that I had, someone had messaged me before we got on, asked, let's see if I can recall, why would AMC, I know this is somewhat of a subjective question, but why would AMC be incentivized to settle knowing that there's at least 60 to 90 days that they're going to have to wait this out if they thought they could just win this, at a preliminary injunction?
It's a really good question. I was on another call like a week or two ago, and I got asked if I was Adam Aaron, what would I do? It was before the I guess it was right after the initial ruling came out. And it was like, if you were Adam Aaron, what would you do? Go to the preliminary injunction hearing, or would you settle this case? And I like made a joke about how if I were Adam Aaron, I made some crude joke about how like I made fun of Adam Aaron in some certain way. But like I think I would have gone to the preliminary injunction hearing especially if I were Adam Aaron, because I think he's kind of arrogant and like obviously thinks he can do whatever he wants and get away with it. I mean, that's the sort of been the thrust of his behavior that I've seen in the past. I mean, he seems to get away with things that I think are egregious, kind of like, I don't know, taking advantage of folks' behavioral kind of things. But he also seems to, like, I don't know, be a risk taker. And it's surprising to me. So I wonder the same thing, honestly. I don't know. Like, I actually have really the same question, and I don't have a good sense of why, other than like that somehow that's why I'm like still not settled on, like, I think in one sense that people are saying that this is a fair settlement to stockholders, and I don't fully disagree. Like, I don't think it's a patently bad deal. I don't just like hate it. I don't look at it and go, oh my God, what is this? Like, it's probably the biggest settlement in sort of
7 minutes. So yeah, I'm trying a new phone service integrated with my PC. This is not a cell phone that she's calling. And I've been testing a few of them out. This is the first one that the idea was to have 1 minute conversations, not 1 hour conversations. Okay, we're back.
Hi. So I think it's like the biggest settlement dollar equivalent wise that someone will ever have gotten for like a fiduciary duty claim case. I mean, you have to look at, I understand that like it doesn't seem like a good deal just to people maybe generally or in some sense, but the fact is that these claims are only worth a certain amount of sort of what they've been worth historically for a certain type of breach of fiduciary duty. Like they have value not as to how you think you were harmed as stockholders in terms of market value or something. They have value in terms of like what do these class of cases in the past, how are they valued in terms of like when a fiduciary breaches a certain type of duty, how do those cases get valued by the court? I don't know. It's interesting because the way, like I said before, with all the market forces, you can't necessarily look at the way that the market ate up your money and say, I get all that money back because Adam Aaron did this and it caused this harm.
Right.
Because there's so many other forces at play. So you have to kind of also look at how the court has compensated classes for this kind of breach before, and then say, in that context, this goes through the way that it was proposed, it'll probably be the largest class action settlement of its type ever.
Really?
And so,
wow. Yeah,
I think for sure, 100 million or 110 million dollar equivalent, whatever. I mean, however it was, I don't know. Like, I haven't looked at all the particulars, but I think that's a fair statement. And so, on the one hand, it's like, and like I say, I plan to dive into it a lot more fulsomely when it's the appropriate time and when I have a minute to breathe. But we don't have to like freak out about, like, we're not running behind here. Like, we have plenty. They haven't even filed the damn thing yet. Like, they haven't even filed the proposed settlement. They haven't noticed you all. They have not given you notice of the proposed settlement. I know it feels like they have, and I know it probably always feels like they are trying to screw you out of time to object or trying to trick you into something. But I promise, like, that's not happening here. And Vice Chancellor Zern is not going to allow it to happen. And I'll do my best not to allow it to go unnoticed that there's a deadline coming up or that there's a time frame that like, it's going to be very clear if you pay attention when things need to happen and when you need to be conscious of what's going on. So that's all to say. I just think that the settlement is it's interesting. I mean, like I say, it's a big number in terms of the historical value of these cases. It's also like, why are they doing it? Like, why aren't they going to the PI and thinking? Because there was all this like arrogant bro energy around when, I mean, it's probably because she denied the lifting of the motion for status quo, the motion to lift the status quo order, because they were so confident that they were going to win. Like they had no idea that they could lose that motion. I think they had the same vibe. I know actually for a fact they had the same vibes about the preliminary injunction hearing. They thought there was no chance that they could lose at the PI hearing. And I think they just probably got scared, like, holy shit, we lost this. They didn't have the first blessed idea that they could lose this, the first motion. I mean, I know they didn't even have a plan for what they would do if they lost, because that was how little either party thought that she would deny that. So I think it just probably spooked them enough that they were like, holy, what, this is a whole new world. And frankly, like, it is a new court in a lot of senses. This is like they're living in the past, man. I don't know if you guys are big Lebowski fans, but like, man, Walter, you're living in the past. Like, they are living in the past, man. They're like, these lawyers, some of them, I love them, but they are like living in the court of like 5-10 years ago. This is a new court in terms of, these are younger jurists who they just have their own style. They have their own, and these guys think they're litigating for rules from 5-10 years ago. And like, they're just not. And I don't know why they're not grokking that fact, but like, they'll learn. They're learning.
These are attorneys that are familiar with the Delaware Chancery Court on both sides,
they're great
right?
attorneys. They're excellent. They're excellent attorneys. That's why it's like mind-boggling. They're the best of the best. It's like,
yeah.
But I don't know.
Both sides,
like,
the plaintiff and the defendant, right?
Yeah, great lawyers.
I've got another question here from Steven. He says, do you think that the settlement could be altered from that 1 for 7.5? The payout?
I mean, sure. Like, there's another case where I won't comment on the probability of that happening, but the possibility that it happens is absolutely. Like, there's another case where Zern's, I think, one of the first maybe vice chancellors to ever deny there was a cash settlement that was like just actual cash money, and she denied the cash settlement because she was like, this isn't fair to stockholders. You all have to go back and litigate this case. And people always say to me, like, well, you can't, but they can't be forced to litigate. And it's like, actually, yeah, they kind of can. Like, when you take on a class action lawsuit, you take on something bigger than yourself. You take on something, you take on a class, and you take on the sort of like like I say, it's something bigger than yourself. So she is not scared of saying, this isn't a good deal for stockholders. Either go back and renegotiate it or go back and litigate it. So I'm not saying that she will do that here, to be clear. I have no position currently on the merits or the numbers or the whatever, but it is a thing that could happen, is that she could say, I don't like this deal on its terms.
AV Diggity has a question. What, I don't know if you can answer this one, but I'm just going to speak it and let you react. What decision do you think would benefit the retail shareholders?
Yeah, these are things that, like, I honestly don't even try to wrap my brain around, because I really don't like to, I don't really like to think about it in terms like that, because it just takes up too much brain space for me that I try to keep kind of pristine to like the legal side.
Should be right back, guys. And we're not gonna keep this going on all night, since we have the 7-minute phone call limitation. But once we're done with Chancery Daily, Stephen, maybe one of you guys can call me on this number, and we'll just double check from another number. Okay, you're back.
Okay, after this one, I gotta go for a walk.
I was just telling them we're not going to keep doing this all night, the calling back every 7 minutes. So I appreciate your patience.
No problem.
So,
but anyway, I don't try to think about it that way. I just honestly don't like spend the mental energy to wrap my mind around like what is beneficial to which. So I can't like use up that much mind space to think about it from a financial perspective that way.
Guys, you got 6 minutes left to put your questions in. 1796 Patriot. If you look in the bottom left-hand side of the screen, I've been putting the topics. And so just rewind to this video till you see a topic that says letters to the judge. We've already gone over that. I've tried to make it easy for you guys to index if you got to rewind. But I don't want to repeat topics we've already covered. Doc Zeno says, back in the day, we did justice the old-fashioned way. That's how we did it here in Texas too, Doc.
Yeah.
Hang 'em high.
In Delaware, we're very genteel, but not like the Texas genteel. Like we're very.
While we're giving the folks 3 more minutes to come up with a question, how many years, decades, 100, 200 of precedents do we have in the Delaware Chancery Court for corporate law?
So, it's funny because I was just going back through some of the old. There's a Supreme Court justice who's potentially about getting toward retirement age, and his father was a chancellor on the Court of Chancery and then on the Supreme Court. And I was going back through his father's decisions because we were going to make like a little set of playing cards with his quotes on them, and I was like looking at some decisions from like 100 years ago, or well, maybe 50 years ago to be fair, but it goes back a couple hundred years. But it's like, oh my God, even for 50 years ago, the precedent is so outdated already. The thing that's amazing about this court is that it's constantly creating so much new precedent, and it keeps it like up to date because it's a bench trial court. It's constantly generating so much precedent that is live, and like the body of case law is enormous, but it's all very current. So it's pretty incredible the way that this court works.
And the case law decisions from the Delaware Chancery Court have a ripple effect across the United States for corporate law,
absolutely.
Right?
And even across the world, there are countries that just literally say their corporate law, the entire countries that just say our corporate law is the law of the Court of Chancery.
Yeah.
Let me just address this one question from Grandpa Barney because I wanted to mention this also about opting out of the class, because I saw some questions about this on Twitter also. He says, I think it's a he, Grandpa. Does the judge know that most of us didn't sign up for this? Yes, she definitely knows that. However, what's weird about class actions, potentially weird in the sense that it feels weird, is that these are, like non-opt-out classes in the sense that because you're all stockholders and you own what are basically fungible stock certificates, you don't have a constitutional right to be treated differently. So because you're sort of similarly situated, holding effectively the same piece of whatever rights and bundle of, thing stock, you don't have a right to opt out. So unfortunately, although it feels weird, the best that you get is the right to object and be heard, and then have the judge consider your objections, and then you have the right to whatever settlement consideration is made available on a pro rata basis to all stockholders. And so I encourage you to pay close attention to, I will do my best to break down what I think the settlement looks like and what I think is useful to do in terms of if there are meaningful things to say and object about it. I don't think that submitting a bunch of letters now is a really bad idea, just on a personal level. I think flooding the court with things is incredibly burdensome. Like I said, I don't know if you heard me before, but I said, do not email the court, full stop. If you need to submit an objection because you're just like, you can't survive without sending something out of time early right now, please mail it properly with the proper instructions that I put on Twitter. Do not do it the wrong way, which is the wrong way is email is the wrong way. Maybe we have problems with the whole class action schema, but like, that's not all going to get resolved here. That's going to require like some more thoughtful analysis of just like what our views are on how class actions work. And then maybe we'll have to like go, I don't know, protest or talk to the legislature or like have more meaningful conversations about it. But unfortunately, like just shit posting and yelling at each other on social media is not really an effective way of handling any of that anger or outrage about any of this. So I just really encourage people to be thoughtful and to express yourselves, but do it in a way that's going to actually do something like for the future or for other people or for anything other than just like raging about it.
Yeah.
It makes a difference what you think. What you think makes a difference, but make a difference. Don't just make it more noise.
I want to thank you for your time. Before we get cut off, I appreciate you taking some time out of your weekend. And guys, I do follow her on both on Twitter and on her paid site. There's links in the video description. If you choose to do that yourself, that's up to you. If not,
and there's also a lot of free content on the Substack, so you can sign up for the free version, and a lot of the stuff ends up on the free side of the paywall, so don't feel like you have to pay to get content on there either.
I encourage everybody to follow someone like Chancery Daily that is giving you non-emotional, not legal advice, but advice from an attorney who is in the Delaware State Bar, instead of these randos on YouTube, these wannabe attorneys that are more emotional driven.
Yeah, there is some terrible advice out there.
There is some terrible advice out there. All right, she got disconnected. Her 7 minutes. I'm glad I got my thank you in. And don't go harass her on social media. Just follow her, whether you agree or disagree. If you can ask a respectful question, she will try to answer you. I see her answering people, but if you're going to rage against her with all the nonsense we see out there, she's going to block you. We got a call back.
Okay, I'm both Italian and Irish, so I do really bad with goodbyes, so I have to say properly goodbye. So anyway, I just thank you for having me. Thank you guys for being good sports and being appropriate and everything else. I really appreciate it. If you all can be my spokespeople on Twitter, and if you see people being assholes in the comments, just tell them not to do it there. They can go wherever else on Twitter they want and be assholes, but if I end up in a long reply thread where people are just fighting about naked shorts one more time, I'm honestly going to scream.
I don't want to lose you as a resource. I don't want to lose you as a resource. So my general advice would be, if you're seeing that kind of vitriol, just hit the block button.
I know. I should be better about that.
Don't let him get to you.
I know.
It's sad, but there's a lot of emotional people, and I get that, and I'm sure you get that too, but we still need to be respectful to each other and try and, when it comes to matters of law, keep things fact-based and not push away people like you that are trying to provide independent reporting.
Yeah, right? Totally. So anyway, thank you so much. It was fun to talk, and I'm glad I was able to share some real information with you guys, and hopefully you all can go preach the gospel of
everybody please share this live stream far and wide. Let's get the facts out there from a person whose opinions have been right, based on my experience. I've gotten very little correct in my guessing, and then the next day you come out with an opinion, and I'm like, damn it, if I would have just waited one more day, you already had the answers. So I appreciate all you do for keeping us up to date.
All right. Well, good to talk to you.
Okay. Have a good night.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye. Woo, that was a good conversation, I think. Hopefully you guys got some value out of that. For those who are just joining in, again, there is little index titles in the bottom left-hand side of the screen. We covered letters to the judge, the settlement hearing, the preliminary injunction hearing. We covered the motion to intervene. We covered the status quo order, the settlement hearing, and then just some general talk. So you can rewind or watch it at your leisure. Again, what she said, and I saw her in Twitter telling people regarding writing letters, she said, you're going to have time to write letters, and right now is not the right time. If they follow the process and get a settlement hearing scheduled, it's going to be 60 days from whenever they get in front of the judge. So let's say they get in front of the judge on the Wednesday, then AMC will have to notify all of us through an 8K and letters maybe to you in the mail that there's a proposed settlement, and there'll be 60 days for you to write a letter then and file an objection. So what Chancery Daily was saying is that is the time to submit your letters if you want to be effective, for or against. I really don't care who's writing letters. Do whatever your heart tells you to do. But to be effective and not waste the court's resources, it's important to follow the process that the court expects you to follow, which is don't email and submit your letters when it's time to submit, which is why I haven't talked about letters on this channel. Steve Blazin says, but Tony, I object now. Yeah, unfortunately, we got a bunch of armchair attorneys out on YouTube telling people what to do instead of, trying to talk to people to understand the process. It's my goal to always provide you guys the best information, useful, and like I said, whether you want to write a letter for or against, I would urge you to do it at the appropriate time. I'll hang out for a few more minutes and take additional questions. And then if you guys want to do a more casual live stream where we might smoke a cigar and have a tequila, we'll set that up as a separate one, because I don't want to tarnish the good work that was done in this live stream with the what's the word? I was going to say abominations that happen on our late night live streams. All right. Seeing as there's no further questions on this topic and no objections, case closed on this. Thank you for tuning in, guys. Feel free to drop comments if you're watching this afterwards in the video. And, I do have a line of communication with the young lady from Chancery Daily. I don't know how young she is, but I will do my best. And like I said, I follow her on her Substack, the paid, just to bring you guys the most accurate, relevant information as quickly as it's available from someone who actually knows what they're talking about. Hit me up in the Discord, those of you that are, all of you are members. If you want to do a live stream tonight, let me know in the Discord, and we'll come back and do one here in 10 or 15 minutes. Thank you all so much for your time, for your patience. I know this is not one of us wants this to drag out 60 to 90 more days, but it does seem like that is what is ahead of us, quite potentially. More likely than not, even with a settlement agreement agreed to by both parties. Love you guys. Have a good night.